Hi friends, in the previous video I explained you what is threading in Python, and this was the example which I took in my previous videos, how to create function, and if you want to create multi-threading, so how to use threading.thread and like this one. So it was like that. We have a main program, main thread, and you need to create a multiple threads. So this was the example. Okay, but I did this example with the help of simply pure function. I created a function and I target that function with the help of threading.thread. So can we do the same thing with the help of another way in Python? It means, can you create a class, something like that? Yes, we can do. So before going to explain Python async IO, just I want to explain the same thing but with the help of classes, because when we do something multi-threading in the Python, so generally you might have seen that the code we have used the classes concept. So how to achieve the same thing in Python classes? So that is the example I'm going to take. So I'm going to delete it and this one. So what we can do, so okay, before going to that, just I'll take a quick recap. What do you mean by class? What do you mean by object? How to create object? How to define class, and how to create object of that class and access methods. So I'll take very simple example. Yeah, I can take like that one, right? And okay, sorry, my bad. Should be a class, my third. Okay, as previous video, I told you that I'm using a AI tool to write my code. So it could be something like that. You can see the lot of code, but don't worry about that. I'll update that. So I have just defined a class my thread, and let me take a very simple method f1 colon and print f1 function. Okay, it's very simple. Okay, I can take one thing, or I can create a variable, and I need to access this variable here. So I can use the Python formatter. Let me know you know the Python formatter or don't. You don't know. So this is the very simple example of how to define class and how to define method in that class in Python. So what is class? Class is the collection of some methods and variables. It could be a global, it could be a local variables, and you have to define a name, and with the help of this name, my thread, you can create an object and you can access variable as well as the method. So one thing you have to remember, whenever you have to access any global variable means a variable which is defined outside the class, you have to use a syntax, a keyword that is called self. I'm not going to deep into the self. I hope if you know about this keyword in the object-oriented programming, if you might have heard about in the PHP, JavaScript, C, C++. So this is same as the self. Okay, so if I run this program, do you think something like f1 function and the value of x is going to be printed here? I run the program and you can see it is blank. Nothing is here because you cannot access variables and method of a class without taking permission of my thread. It could be like a house, right? And these are some rooms, or you can say this is your room, and in your room, if somebody outside your room want to access some person residing in that room, so definitely they have to take the permission. Same here. How to create object? Any variable equal to class name, and ob1 dot and whatever the class name you want to access. This is the simple syntax. F1 function and the value of x is 10. And one thing I want to mention here, whenever you create object of a class, automatically a default argument is pushed in that particular function, and that default argument is always called self, or you can say this keyword. So that's why I don't have to pass like this one, because it is automatically pushed by the Python in a particular function. So self is always here. Okay, so I hope you have understood the meaning of self here. And if you want to pass any parameter except self, so you can just define 20 here, and you can pass. So it means self is by default set by the Python, but for the 20 you have to pass in a variable, so that y can take the value of 20 and you can print here. And one thing, any variable outside the function can be accessed by the self keyword, but any variable which is local to that function, you have to call that directly. Why? So these are basic rule you must know. And what would happen if I passed a variable by the constructor name? So could you tell me? So let's do this in a practical way. I passed a 50 here, and but the problem is that this is the f1 function and I just passed a variable 20 here. But when I pass a variable by constructor, so it is saying in line number 13 there is a my thread takes no arguments. One thing you must know, that whenever you create an object of a class, a constructor means a special function, you can say a special function is automatically called, and that do something, no, not in this topic I'm going to explain, but that does something in the memory. But if you really want to use constructor in Python, if you want to use this 50 number in a particular special function called constructor, and you want to access here, so you can just use how to create, it means how to create a constructor in Python. So you have to use def underscore underscore init, like this one. This is the way you define constructor. So unnecessary things I'm going to, okay, like this one. So self, I have already explained you. So whenever you define any function underscore underscore init, this is always called constructor. Now you can pass 50 of particular variables, for example x, and x equal to 90, for example, and I'm just deleting it. Self x equal to x, and whatever value you pass in this constructor is assigned to self.x. It means a global variable, and it means this one. Now self comma y, and this is right, and I want to show you something. X is already here. Now let me run this program, and you can see f1 function 50 20. So why 50, why not 90? Because this global variable x has been overridden by the constructor value 50 here. The priority goes to the constructor. So in short, just I would say class keyword you use to define the class, and underscore init underscore is used to define constructor, and the function name you can define any word, any keyword you can use, any word you can use, and def is a reserved keyword to tell the Python that this is your function. If you want to access, you have to create an object first, and then you can access the methods of that particular class. Okay, so let's come back to the our topic that was, I guess, async IO and multi-threading with classes concept. So let me do this. So I'll take the example class thread and going to delete everything. Threading dot thread. Okay, so whenever you want to make a particular class treated as a thread, you must inherit that class by the thread class. So in this case, my thread is a subclass and threading dot thread is the parent class. It is just like you can say class thread, right? And you are extends thread, like this one. The thread is a parent class and my thread is a subclass. Okay, so you must remember it. And after that, you have to define constructor, as I told you. This is important. And run, I will tell you what is the meaning. Run, I have already told you, I think. If not, I'll explain here. Okay, so init, and you can remove it. And there is a one method you have to define, super. Super means you are accessing parent class. In this tutorial, I'm not going to explain you everything about the object-oriented programming and Python rules, but whatever the minimum I can take here. And init, and I think it's sufficient. Okay, and I can take this one, run. What is the meaning of run? When you inherit any class from the thread, in thread class we have already defined a function called run. It means whenever we start a thread, this particular function is called automatically. This is important. And now what can I do? I can take the example of okay, so print started thread, and you can define the name here, name, and f self dot name. It means whatever I pass name in the constructor, I can access by the self dot name. And I can just for, in the previous example, I just used a loop from 0 to 3, 0 to 2. The same thing I can do here, like this one. 3 and is running, sleep, time dot sleep I can use here. And I can do is running. Instead of running, I can, what I can do is printing. Okay, this is fine. It sounds good and it looks good. Even thread, whatever the name is printing something. And after that, after completing the loop, we can say here. Okay, it is the part of that one. I can say finished. Yes. Okay, so I can see some problem here. Okay, so alignment problem. Now, I hope you are understanding whatever I have written here. It's very simple. It's a class, and inheriting from the parent class thread, we have defined the constructor. We are not going to talk about depth of this one. Oh, what is super and what is init, right? This is the syntax. If you know the classes, you must know about that. And def run and thread. Run is a method of thread class. Whenever we create an object of this thread, this is going to be called automatically. How? So we can define here th1. Okay, before that, just I'll show you what happens if I run this program. There is a blank again. As I told you, you have to create an object in order to access methods. So th1 my thread 2. Okay, the two examples are sufficient, I guess. Now in this case, I'm not going to define like threading dot thread and target and arguments, because it is already inherited here. And you can just say thread 1 and thread 2 here. So it's fine. So in order to call this function run, you have to start the thread. So how to start the thread? Dot start, and like this one. I'm not going to use join right now before, but end of all process. So this program is same as I explained in the previous video, but without classes and objects. But in this case, same example I have taken with the help of classes and objects, end of threads. So could you guess what should be the output here? So again, we are using the thread. So the first thread will be called because of the start, and it will print started thread 1, and in between, because we are taking time of 1 second, it will take the priority of thread 2 because threads are independent. So there will be no sequential order. th1 can take priority over the th2 and th2 and vice versa. So do we run? Okay, so thread 1, after that thread 1 is printing 0, but before going to printing 1 and 2, it thread 2 took the priority, and it is saying thread 2, and thread 2 is printing end of threads, printing 1, printing 2, and I think there is something wrong. I'll just correct it. It is not formatting. Yeah, this one didn't use format, end of threads. Okay, so I think I'm not going to discuss again, as if you want to explanation, just watch my previous videos, because I can tell here, whenever we have multiple threads, the output cannot be sequentially, right? It will be a asynchronous, and concurrent model in the format of asynchronous. One thread is taking priority over the other. Okay, now as you can see, the end of threads is printing between here, this one, but why? Because you have not mentioned in your in any of the line that you parent to parent thread that you must finish before completing, after completing all the child threads. So what you have to do, th1 dot join and th2 dot join. Now if I run the program, you can see this is going to be printed at the end of that one, because you instructed your program that please wait for the child threads, and after that you have to finish. I'm talking about the main threads. So this is the again the simple example of multi-threading, and I've explained you by using the classes and thread, and by using the simple functions. So I hope you have understood what exactly the meaning of multi-threading in Python, and how to create which package is responsible for this one. Okay, so initially in my first video, I told you, when we talk about threading, okay, I can, you can just go to my blog, and all the examples which I explained in the previous video, in the current video, you can go through here. You can copy and paste in your editor, and you can understand things here. Okay, so async, when we talk about the thread, it's a multi-threads of operating system, as a OS level threads. But where is the async? So async is always a single thread, and you can see here it's a async and thread, and I'm not taking the multi-thread. Same thread has multiple tasks. So single thread but asynchronous, it switches between tasks while waiting, non-blocking, managed by Python event loop, no OS thread. So by default, I told you every program is a single thread, but in the single thread, can you maintain event loop? Can you maintain multiple tasks in the concurrent format? So how to achieve this? I'll take this example here. Okay, so I'm going to delete all these things, and before going to that, I'll take the simple example, def greet, and different approach, different example, not taking the same one. Hello, and I can say hello. Okay, the format, yeah, this is great. Hello, and double quotes, and NAME name, and name is coming from here, and time dot sleep, and instead of time, if we want, you are going to use a async, so we have a package, you can delete it, and we have a package async. Yeah, you have to use this package, and this package has a command async sleep function. This is, I have to and by whatever, a simple function, right? But in this case, to sleep, I have used the async IO. And when we talk, okay, just before going to async, the main logic, I'll take the simple example. And if you have to call this function 3 times, and I think there is something we, okay, let me use time for that, for the time being. And time dot lib 1. Okay, so it's a simple function, greet, print, time, ram, and greet. There is something wrong. Let me check this. Okay, so if you see, hello Raj, first of all, this function is called it. This is not a multi-threading. This is not async, not concurrency. The simple single thread calling sequentially. Hello Raj, bye Raj. Hello Kamal, bye Kamal. Hello Kamal, bye Kamal. And it took, if I just put here 2, so you can see it will take the 3 seconds. First function, 2 second wait. It is waiting. It means another grid is not going to take priority because it's not a thread. It's not a concurrent model. The simple. It took 6 seconds printing sequentially format. So in the instead of creating a multi-threads, can we use can we use the multiple task handling concurrently in the single threads? Yes, we can do it with the help of async. So what I'll change in this program, async dot sleep and 2 second, in order to create a single thread but asynchronously, you have to use the keyword async here, and that will do await. You might have heard about the await and async concept if you know something about the JavaScript and Node.js. So because the Java node is always handle everything in an event loop, and that the concept is called the async and await concurrent handling. So I'm going to define here a function, define a main, and I'll use async again, and async io dot, yes, this is important. Okay, so what is important here? I have defined a function but used a keyword async that makes this function asynchronous. This is very important if you want to uh, achieve the task 1, task 2, task 3 under thread concurrently. So you have to use the async io. May you can take the word async here. Whenever a function has async keyword, so any function which is asynchronous have to must use the await. So it will wait. Again, define async, and async dot gather means how many concurrent task you want to achieve. So it, instead, in the previous video I used a target in a multi-threading and then define all the function. So in this case I have used the async dot gather and define greet Raj, greet Kamal, greet. I have used three three copy of the same function in this gather, and async io dot gather will make greet to 3 tasks concurrently. Okay, so I'm going to run it. Yes. Okay. So how to run the main function, that is async io dot run, and this is the main function. It will call this, and this function will create a 3 tasks concurrently which are using async and await. So I run this program and you can see it is not going to 3 seconds, and task greet Raj can take the priority over the task greet Kamal, so on. So there is something which I think this should be await. Yeah. Any async function should await. Again, run it. Yeah, now it is running. Yeah, you can see it didn't take 3 seconds, and within the 3 seconds, it just printed everything, but not sequentially. Hello Raj, then hello Kamal, and then bye Raj, bye Kamal, and bye Kamal. Okay, I have just used 2 times. Rohan. Yes. Hello Raj, hello Kamal, hello Ryan. So this is not sequentially concept, and we did the same thing which we used in the multi-threading. We achieved asynchronous concurrent concept, but with the help of async IO. So it depends if you know what's your requirement, what's your model, what you are going to achieve, and what fits best in your things. If it best for multi-threading, use multi-threads. If it is best for async IO, you can use async IO. Okay, so for the detailing and the different example, you can go this block, and all the examples you can go through here, and I have explained here. If any question you want to know, I know that I have just taken the simple example as much as possible. I could do. I did it. But if you have any questions, if a technical approach you want to use, why we should use multi-threading async, so you can just comment, and definitely I'm going to answer on that. Okay.